What's going on, everyone? ODC, that's me here, and today's review we're going to take a look at the 1989 G.I. Joe Raider vehicle. And this is a really cool vehicle. It's actually larger than you think it is. I mean, just to put things in perspective here, I'll bring in the vintage figure that he came with, which is Hot Seat, and as you can see, he is rather large. Or the vehicle here is rather large, sitting next to Hot Seat, which is the figure that he came with in the set. And I did pick this up on the secondary market. I picked this up on eBay. This was an eBay purchase. I picked it up for around 35 bucks. I think the market on this thing goes from anywhere from $30 to around 60 bucks, depending on quality, what's missing, is it fully complete, all that jazz. But talking about the vehicle here, this is a really cool vehicle that I feel like a lot of people kind of not so much forgot about, but just don't talk about. So, and that's what I really pride a lot of my videos on, is kind of doing the thing that no one else does. At least I try to do that as much as possible. But taking a look at Hot Seat here, here's the figure that comes with the Raider. His name is Hot Seat. Don't know a whole lot about this character. After pretty much reading his file card, it seems like they were kind of going a different direction here as far as trying to push new characters. Just so you know what I'm talking about here, here's this file card. You can pause it and read it if you so choose. But it pretty much, I mean, it gives a lot of love to this character, saying that Hot Seat pretty much has the tactical mind of a 5-star general, and he can throw a wicked punch too. But yeah, it's I didn't know any of that information before purchasing this, but you wouldn't. I don't know if I would take this guy as too seriously, wearing orange and red pants. I don't know if wearing orange and red pants would be the mind of a tactical master. When I think of someone who's tactical, I don't know if they would be wearing orange and red pants. I think of orange and red, I think of hazmat. Or I think of someone in emergency services. But the upper torso piece is pretty nice on the figure. I'm not a vintage style collector, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the figure. It's a late 80s, early 90s action figure, and they started to get a little bit more brighter and brighter into the 90s. This vehicle set did see a first appearance at retail in 1989, and then was discontinued in 91. So it did go into the 90s. This vehicle set, but it wasn't too bright yet. We already did the review on the Monster Blaster, and you can see that it's a little bit brighter. This is a little bit more toned down, a little bit more real world for you. As far as color schemes go, obviously minus the big G.I. Joe stickers on the side, which would stand out like a sore thumb. But I digress. This is Hot Seat. His helmet is removable. It is a little bit tight on his head, so I would be a little bit careful. But taking his helmet off, taking Hot Seat's helmet off, it's pretty much he's pretty much got some gray hair, which gives him a little bit of a backstory there, seeing as he's maybe more of a seasoned veteran. As the file card doesn't really say that he's that much of a veteran, but giving off the gray hair and the gray eyebrows and the the kind of grimace that he's giving off makes him look a little bit more of a seasoned veteran in the G.I. Joe ranks. Putting his helmet back on, I like the fact that he does come with a helmet, because most tank drivers or commanders or whatever you like to call them usually do have helmets with microphones attached. I'm not a big fan of the one eye with night vision. I guess if you want to call that night vision, or some sort of optics attached to the helmet. I'm not a big fan of that, but I mean, I guess you can use it. So there is Hot Seat. He doesn't come with any accessories. He pretty much just comes with the removable helmet, and that's it. Moving on to the coup de grace here, which is the real reason why I got this. I remember one of my friends having it when I was much younger, and I think it was around the time that it came out, around early 90s. And I was always... it was a vehicle that I never forgot about because it kind of left an impression on me, seeing as it had multiple capabilities and multiple uses. And that's always the coolest thing about G.I. Joe. Well, it looks great, but what else does it do? And not to the point of a transformer, but we always, as G.I. Joe fans, we always love the multiple capabilities that our vehicles, that we got with our G.I. Joe vehicles. Like whether it's the Mobile Command Center, or whether it's the Rolling Thunder, the Thunderclap, or the multiple other vehicles that we got that had different features to it, like the Hammerhead, or the plethora of different vehicles that always had something unique to them to set themselves apart from the rest. So you didn't just get a boring old tank or whatever. You got some fantasy, some sci-fi mixed in with your regular, ordinary vehicles, which is always welcomed with me. I always appreciate that. Taking a look at the front end here, it's pretty well armed, just right off the bat from what you see. The whole cockpit canopy portion with the engines on the back portion with some searchlights right here is a full 360 rotation at the top of the tank, which looks really cool, and very well used as far as function goes. We have 6 different cannon ports right here. We have 2 on each side on the sides, and they can swivel up and down. This is about as far down as it can go, a little bit past neutral position, which would be right up around there, and then it can go up. So these can be used as anti-aircraft cannons right here. And then same thing on the other side. And then we do have a full 360 rotation on the cannons in the front, which is pretty nice that we got that range of motion. Maybe I would have liked a little bit more range of motion in the cannons on the side here, due to it only going up about this far. Maybe a full vertical would have been nice, but I'm not going to nitpick that much. It's like I said, it's a nitpick. It's something that I would have maybe improved on. Or I would have done almost a full 180 right here, and then you could use these cannons to kind of cover your backside in case you go into the other vehicle mode, which I'm going to get into in a second. But if you are in this vehicle mode and you are worried about your backside being exposed here, no puns intended there, you do have this little scout tank that's attached to the back, and it does have a cannon on the back portion, which is really cool. Really nice sculpted detail going throughout. It's pretty much just plastic. There's not a whole lot of paint apps, but that's what we're used to with old vintage G.I. Joes. It's mostly stickers and different colored plastics mixed together, which in some cases actually works a little bit better. But to that point, you do have your backside covered with this still connected. Once you disconnect it, unfortunately, which I'm going to show you, it's kind of exposed, but they almost fully covered their bases with that. Speaking of the second vehicle mode, I'll get into that right now. Flipping this upside or on its side, actually, you can see that we have 2 kickstands right here, which is that's the term I'm going to use with it. Just go with it. You kind of want to point them down like so a little bit, just until they hit the plastic, which is right here on the backside. And all you want to do is you simply just want to pull down on each side, and it will release the scout tank. And then you want to fold those legs down like so, and we'll just push this aside for now as we want to focus on this little guy right here. Now, while this is a cool little feature, this cannon is flawed. Or this scout tank is pretty flawed when it comes to the design of it and the functionality. But we'll get to that in one second. I do want to point out does a modern figure actually fit in this thing? Can we use modern figures with this vehicle? And I want to say, oh hell yes, you can. Flipping up this canopy, we've got the 25th anniversary Hawk in there, and he can fit right in there, and we can put the canopy down, and you can imagine that this thing has a nice digital display on here. That would have been cool for the time if they did include that, but I mean, being this 1989 at the time, they probably didn't have the resources, I guess, to do that. Maybe put a sticker on the inside and give a little nice targeting digital display in there. So for right now, I'll just use my imagination until I steal a sticker from maybe Rise of Cobra or something like that and put it in there. But this is a really cool feature. Unfortunately, this little scout tank can only cause so much damage because, unfortunately, if you want to get, let's say there's a, let's say hot seat right here is a target. You can't swivel too fast because, I mean, this is a tank. Let's see if he'll stand. There's no rotation here due to the treads being in the way. So pretty much what you have to do is you have to rotate the tank like so to fire. Now, when you're firing at the, whether it's a vehicle or an enemy or whatever, you're pretty much aiming at their knees, which isn't the most effective thing if you're aiming at single, if you're aiming at just regular persons, so to speak. But, I mean, I guess if you're aiming at another vehicle, and I'll just use the other half of this tank for a vehicle, you're pretty much aiming at their treads, which I guess could work, but it would have been nice if they would have included some sort of hinge joint right here to swivel this up. I mean, you don't need to even swivel it downward because you don't want to aim downward unless it's kind of sitting at the edge of a mountain maybe. But it would have been nice to include some sort of hinge joint here so you can go at least up with it. But pretty much, I mean, this is just a stationary scout vehicle.
Really quick, I just wanted to interject here and correct myself. There actually is a hinge joint. What you're seeing right now is the neutral position for the scout tank, but there actually is a hinge joint on there. I was actually a little apprehensive to move that tank. I was guessing if there was a hinge joint in there, and there actually is, and there you can see it right there. You can elevate the cannon muzzle up. Or the cannon up. So I retract my previous statement, and I just wanted to point that mistake out, so it's included in the review.
To point out on the back, we do have a little bit of the engine display right here. And there's some sculpting detail right in there. There's some more sculpting on the engine port on the back. Looks pretty cool. Now, what I like to imagine, and I'm not sure if this was an intentional design, but these two holes right here, it would have been cool if they would have included two missiles right here to kind of plug into there and had a little spring-loaded action, missile action, and you could have included that with maybe two buttons right here. You press the buttons and the missiles come flying out. This way, he's covering his backside as well. Now, that would have just been my idea, or you could have even gone one better and just sculpted two big guns right here, whether it be laser guns or, you know, up to your imagination, however you would like to use it, but sculpted two guns right here. This way he's got his backside covered as well. Now, I like to use my imagination a lot, and that's been kind of the theme with this vehicle. So I'm going to just imagine these are just two cannon guns in the back, even though it kind of doesn't make sense for how much room is here. But maybe missile launchers right here would be nice. Just to kind of point out, I'm going to use my pointer just to show you how deep those go. So I would say it's about up to here. That's about how deep the holes are. So, I mean, if you wanted to, you could use a smaller missile maybe and put them in there if you wanted to. It also doesn't hinder the room underneath the Raider tank. So, pushing this aside for now, we'll just get the Scout tank out of there. And I'm not sure that's the technical term for the tank. That's kind of the term I'm giving it for now. So If it's not, I apologize, but let's just get the scout tank out of the way here, and we'll focus on the regular tank. Now, this is actually, I actually have this backwards. This is actually supposed to be faced this way while it's in this stationary mode. Now, this is what I was talking about as far as this kind of being a one-hit wonder, as far as its backside being completely exposed. Now, this is only in the second vehicle mode. There is a third mode as well, which I'll get to in a second, but I kind of want to touch on this. Unless this thing has time to rotate, and I'm not sure how fast this vehicle has, as far as time-wise, takes to rotate, but its backside is going to be completely exposed one way or another. Now, if I were Cobra and I were going to attack this thing and it was in the stationary mode, I think this would be a lot easier to take out if it's like in this mode. Unless it's got its back against the wall, metaphorically speaking, not literally because there's a wall there, but unless it's in a setting where there is a wall behind it, Cobra could just sneak around the back. Whether this thing rotates this way, it's going to get to the back portion eventually. But I'm just thinking tactically here and how to take this out. But to focus on some of the sculpting on the rest of the vehicle, here's the more engine parts right here. Nice sculpt right here with some of these engine parts. I really do like it. The searchlights are a separate plastic and they can rotate on top. Looks really good. As far as pieces that are easily broken, I would say the searchlights on this bad boy are probably the first two to go, seeing as they're a kind of a little bit more of a brittle plastic. They don't rotate, they're pretty much in a fixed position, so that's something to point out as well. The third mode right here pretty much has, there's two tabs on the top, right here and right here. And what you want to do is you kind of want to push this down a little bit, and it is on a rail system, and man, am I a sucker for rail systems. I love them. But you kind of want to push that down, and be careful, because I have seen a lot of other G.I. Joe Raiders with these tabs broken, and it does kind of affect it. Once a tab is broken, it's kind of nothing, there's nothing really you can do about it unless you get a new shell. So with that being said, you kind of want to pull these rails out. Now, you can keep this up into interpretation how you want to have this sit. Now, I have used some in some displays with these aiming straight up, kind of like a Scud missile, or maybe some sort of heat-seeking missile, and they kind of shoot straight up, kind of similar to what the Rolling Thunder does, or you can have it in its regular how it's supposed to be, and you can have these aimed all the way up, and they clip right in to the back portion of the cockpit, and now you have yourself a really big threat with missiles pointing at you, with 6 cannons pointing at you, cannon barrels pointing at you. You have a serious threat right here, including these very large, rather large missiles, which I will take out to show you. Oh, hello. Right here. Here is the two missiles that they come with. It's pretty much, the other one is exactly the same, so I'll just show you this one for now. It does come in separate pieces if you do pick this up mint on card, but this piece you have to attach, and that piece you have to attach. Also, another very common thing that is lost with this set is the muzzle on this cannon, which is a separate piece that you have to kind of use a lot of pressure to push on. So that's another thing to point out with the Scout tank. But this missile is pretty cool, and they pretty much just fit into the groove right here on top, as you can see right there. And you want to take these missiles have grooves that kind of bend down, and what you want to do is you want to take the flattest portion, the flattest fin, and pretty much slide it right in there, and it just locks right into place. So that's really cool. I think the searchlights are a nice feature. If you wanted to go for maybe some sort of tactic of blinding your enemy, let's say it's dark out and you want to blind them, or you could imagine that those are infrared and they read down into the digital display on the cockpit, which we'll get to in a second, which is another thing I like to use with my imagination, is that a lot of these older G.I. Joe cockpits, some of them are very hindering as far as visuals. And I like to think that they have a digital display here, seeing as G.I. Joe is advanced beyond the regular military. So, speaking on the cockpit, let's just take a look at the cockpit really quick. And another question are you asking yourself is, does a modern G.I. Joe figure fit in it? And it absolutely does, as we have the modern version of Hawk, keeping our Hawk theme going today with the general flag in there. So you got your vintage and your modern figures in there, and I really like the amount of detail that we have here with this cockpit. It's kind of reminiscent to the amount of detail. Actually, this has more detail than the Havoc does, but it kind of reminds me of that, seeing as they're in this kind of lying down position. I know the Havoc is in the more prone position, but this is a really nicely sculpted cockpit. I do have to say that. I don't recommend that you put too much pressure on these plastic tabs up here. That could lead to it breaking. I haven't seen parts for these go for crazy amounts of money, but just something to point out so you don't break it if you have it. But I like the, let me just take out flag here really quick. The seat belts are really nice, and they do clip in nice and firm. I like that the sculpt of the pads on the seat, so your Joe's sitting in there comfortably. Nice little sculpt there. I like the sculpting on the back portion. You do have one sticker pretty much right here. You do have one sticker on the inside of the cockpit right there, as you can see, and that's pretty much just a targeting display, which is pretty cool. I would have thought that targeting display would be a little bit larger, so that's why I like to use my imagination and have them have a overhead display that you can't see, only the drivers can see. So I don't know, I love using my imagination with stuff like that. So actually, let's take out flag and we'll put in the guy that's supposed to be in there, hot seat. There we are. And he's in there. We'll shut the cockpit now. And I like the color they decided to go with, not a clear plastic here, but a nice tint. It looks really cool, almost like you can't even tell who's in there. And I dig that a lot. So that's pretty much all of the modes as far as vehicles go. And like I said, I am just a sucker for a rail system. I don't know what it is, but whether it comes down to the and I love how these missiles are hidden like this. I just love playing with a rail system. I can pull this out, put it back in, pull it out, put it back in, pull it out, put it back in. I just love it. It's absolutely fantastic. I love that this rotates. So I mean, even though it is flawed within its design, it still works, I think. There's a lot of nice sculpted detail here around the, I guess you want to call this the rest of the engine, the gears, the rotors, and all of that. That's a really nice design. I do have to do a little bit more cleaning there. It's a little bit more dusty. But other than that, especially speaking of dust, just to note and just to help out your fellow collector, I would definitely recommend using these Greenworks cleaning wipes. The disposable Greenworks cleaning wipes. Those work really well. And no, I'm not sponsored by Greenworks or anything. But let's get these back into its regular mode. What you want to do is you simply want to just push those down again and kind of leave these cocked, not all the way up, because then they'll be in its locking mode. You kind of want to have these up a little bit more like that, just enough so it's clearing this little gap right there. And then you simply just want to use some pressure and push that down until you hear that lock. Then you want to push the legs all the way up so it locks it all the way in. Now, like I said, in this vehicle mode right here, and you could keep it in this vehicle mode, it works. You got your backside covered, you got a lot of armament in the front, you got your searchlights so you can check out the sides if you need to, or the fronts or the back. You could leave one in the back, one in the front, well, however you want to do it. But the other cool, really cool part is that it pretty much has a fourth mode, and you can simply pull the missiles out, and now you can pretty much roll. And it might be a little bit top heavy here, but you do have your missiles in this mode. So it's not hindering anything. It's keeping your options open as far as the vehicle modes go. And it's pretty much open to interpretation as far as how you want to have this thing used. I just love that these missiles are hidden. It's like an added bonus to scare the ever-loving bejesus out of your enemies. I love it. So, and that's cool. So let's just take these down again. And if you do want to have these in the straight-up mode, I don't know if that would technically work, because this back portion would be hitting these tank treads, and also you'd be endangering your other driver back here.
Also, a couple more things I wanted to point out here is that you could actually get the vertical look while you're in this mode as well for the missiles, and also that the two front treads or rear treads, however you want to look at it, are also on hinge joints, on separate hinge joints, so you can adjust them properly.
So I think pretty much the straight up regular mode is the way you would want to have it if you went that route. But just sliding these back in, and it does tend to, these rails do tend to get stuck a little bit, so you kind of have to work with it just a tad. Just be careful with it. But damn, hot damn, if this isn't an awesome vehicle. I really do like it a lot. I overall like the paint, or the color scheme here. I shouldn't say paint because there's not a lot of paint. I like the overall color scheme of this. I like the black mixed with the tan and the dark gray, the lighter gray. It just really helps this thing stand out. I love that it gives you the options of different modes. However mode you want to use it, however mode you want to have it, you can have it. If you want to have all of the guns in the front, you could do that. If you want to have it kind of balanced, like I do, you could have it like so. And it's just great that modern figures as well as your vintage figures can fit on this. It's just an added bonus that at this day and age you really need, especially me being a big vehicle collector, especially all of the vintage vehicles. I want to get as many vintage vehicles as possible. This is a huge, I think, a great pickup. You can also fit some figures on the side here. As far as modern figures go, and I'll just take out my custom, this will be my Marauders segment. I made a custom top side here, and he'll probably be in my next Marauders video. But as far as putting him on the side and rolling this down, you might have to have him have an arm holding on to the side here, but he will, I mean, he will kind of stay on there using his own balance. So you can have a modern figure on there, and if you wanted to do a vintage figure, they do have the pegs on there, so we'll just use General Flag here. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of vintage figures since I am more of a modern collector, but you have General Flag on the side there, and we'll give him his gun. And this actually seems like something General Flag 3, now this is the son of General Flag. General Flag 3 would have, or the third I should say, would be a vehicle that he would be accompanying. Seeing as he likes the front lines. He's like a kind of like General Hawk. He likes the front lines just as much as anyone else does. But this is a beautiful, beautiful tank. I love it. Beautiful vehicle. I gotta give it 2 thumbs up here. I think it's got form, it's got function. It's not perfect. There's design flaws in it that I've pointed out, but overall I think it's a really nice pickup. And like I said, anywhere from the $40 to $60 range is where you're gonna be. Might actually, and I know I said this in the other video, I might actually start posting pictures of all my blueprints on my Facebook page, so you guys can go check that out. I'll start making a album for that on my Facebook page. But overall, definitely go pick this up. It's one of the forgotten few, and yeah, that's pretty much it for me on my review of the G.I. Joe Raider. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.